The shipment arrived just before dawn, 12 crates of premium Peruvian hair, marked under a false company name. Kalis watched from the shadows of Apapa port, a nervous smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He had done it, again. But then the wind shifted, a whisper rode it. Kalis is moving weight again. Too cheap, too fast, too bold. By 7:12 a.m., before the crates even cleared customs, the hair syndicate, an unspoken cabal of the most powerful beauty importers in Nigeria, knew, and they were not smiling. Kalis Obiora wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this world of foreign bank transfers, customs clearance codes, and hush-hush deals behind the Banana Island curtain. He came from the muddy markets of Aba, where his mother sold slippers beside blackened gutters and his father died chasing a loan shark's promise. But Kalis was sharp, too sharp. By 29, he'd made his first million importing electronics. But he saw a bigger wave coming, one soaked in oil-slick weaves and glistening bundles. Hair is the new oil, he'd told his closest friend, Jeed, 3 years ago, but it shouldn't cost people their rent. So he went south, importing quality human hair and selling it below cabal prices. Not fake, not mixed, real bundles, virgin, untouched, affordable. It made him loved. It made him dangerous. 3 men sat across from each other in a quiet room at the top of a luxury hotel overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. No names were spoken, just nods. A waiter brought sparkling water and walked out without looking anyone in the eye. "He's flooding the market," said the man in the agbada. His voice was smooth but carried weight. "We warned him," said the other in a tailored French suit. 3 messages, all ignored. The third man, silent till now, lit a thin cigar and stared out the window. "Kalis doesn't understand," he said slowly. "This isn't a hustle, this is war. We built this empire strand by strand." He turned. Break him. 2 weeks later, Kalis arrived at his warehouse near Trade Fair to find the place swarming with agents. NAFDAC, Sun, Customs, Task Force, all carrying clipboards and grim expressions. Your import papers, no longer valid. Your hair, suspected counterfeit. The crates were impounded, his workers detained. His name was suddenly blacklisted from clearing new shipments. But Kalis only smiled. "This is Lagos," he muttered under his breath. "You don't win by playing clean, you win by playing them." Kalis turned to the one man he trusted, his old friend Jide, the same Jide who once slept in the back of a bus with him, who helped him load crates in the rain, who swore they'd build something for the people. But Jide had changed. Too many dinners in Victoria Island, too many nights in club booths bought by men with no Instagram, but private armies. "I can talk to them," Jide said. "They want peace." Kalis nodded, relieved, grateful. Until a week later, he saw Jide on Arise TV, launching his own hair brand, funded by the same syndicate that just shut Kalis down. Jide didn't look nervous, he looked crowned. They thought he would fold. They thought the Abba boy would go quietly. Instead, Kalis doubled his shipments through Togo. He smuggled bundles across Seam border using fish trucks and wedding convoys. He partnered with street-level salon owners, micro-distributors, market queens, young hustlers. He dared the cabal to keep up. One morning, a viral video shook Lagos, a massive giveaway in Yaba Market. Hundreds of women getting premium hair for free. Compliments of the people's importer, the banner read. The syndicate called an emergency meeting. "He's not just selling hair," the cigar man growled. "He's building a movement." 2 days after the Yaba giveaway, a battered courier showed up at Kalis's private office in Surulere. He was limping, face bruised, mouth sealed shut with blood-crusted gauze. He dropped a small box on Kalis's table and fled without a word. Inside, a single, silky black hair strand and a SIM card. Kalis inserted it into a burner phone. It rang instantly. "You want to be a hero, Kalis?" a voice asked in crisp, unaccented English. "Ask your mother how heroes are buried in Lagos." Click. He didn't flinch, but his hand tightened around the edge of the desk. His mother had been quiet lately, too quiet. When he called his mother's number, a strange man picked up. "She dey fine," he said. "But you go make noise again, we go bury her voice next." Kalis dropped the phone, not in fear, but in fury. They had crossed the line. Now everything was on the table. Kalis met with Mama Lizzie, a legendary market queen in Balogun who ran her stall like a general and spoke in parables sharper than bullets. She served him steaming amala with egusi and bone meat, then leaned in. Uday threatened them with price. But dem no day play pricing war. Dem day play spirit war, she whispered. They don't pay boys. They don't pay babalawos, and they don't pay blood. She reached into her blouse and placed a small carved talisman in his palm. Where am? If you hear your name in wind, don't answer. Kalis nodded, silent. That night, Kalis drove home alone from a meeting near Computer Village. He noticed the white Toyota Hiace too late. The van swerved, boxed him in. 4 masked men leapt out. Machetes, guns, calm precision. But Kalis wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was prepared. From beneath the seat, he pulled a concealed pistol. 2 shots rang out, clean, legal, registered. 1 attacker dropped, the rest scattered, van tires screeching into the night. Kalis stepped out, eyes cold. A small note fluttered from the dead man's pocket. Stay out of Lekki. Or next time, we bury you with the bundles. 3 nights later, under the cover of a thunderstorm, Kalis met with Chuka Wired Namdi, a disgraced former customs officer turned digital ghost. Chuka knew the ports. He knew the syndicate's money routes, their shell companies, even the names they buried behind Caribbean accounts. Give me what I need, Kalis said, and I'll give you back your face. Chuka laughed, teeth gold and cracked. You want to fight men who buy politicians with prayer breakfast? You got enemies, Kalis. I'm ready. Chuka handed him a hard drive, then meet your godfathers in hell. At a high-profile business gala on Victoria Island, Jeed stood center stage beside the Minister of Trade, announcing a new initiative to digitize and regulate the beauty import sector. The crowd clapped, until the giant projector behind them flickered. Suddenly, faces appeared, names, wire transfers, a full expose of the cabal's crimes, bribes and fake product certifications. Gasps, shouting, panic. The screen read, "You call it hair, I call it war." Kalis, Jeed turned pale. Kalis watched from a black SUV across the street, sipping Origin, expression unreadable. The video from the gala hit Channels TV by morning. Instagram was flooded with reposts. TikTok influencers danced to remix tracks with captions like, Kalis no day fear power. Suddenly, every salon wanted his hair. Women were burning fake bundles on Facebook Live. 3 senators distanced themselves from the syndicate. 1 quietly fled to Ghana. And the men in the Lekki boardroom, furious. Find the rat, the man with the cigar hissed. But the rat was already dead, shot in a hotel bathtub, mouth stuffed with Kalis brand wefts. Jeed's phone wouldn't stop ringing. His new company was under audit. Clients were pulling out. Even his wife refused to let him come home. He sat alone in his office, lights off, watching Kalis's old WhatsApp voice note on repeat. Brotherhood no be mouth. If you sell me to wolves, make sure you dey wear fur when I come back. He tried calling Kalis. Voicemail. He left a message anyway. I messed up, bro. I forgot who we were. I forgot Abba. He waited 3 days. No response. While the cabal scrambled, Kalis went underground. He wasn't just selling bundles anymore, he was building a distribution empire. He hired ex-convicts and jobless graduates as agents, created a mobile app, offered 40% commission to anyone who could sell direct. In 2 weeks, he had 8,000 sellers across Nigeria. Then he launched Haircoin, a loyalty cryptocurrency for vendors that could be traded for cash, product, or school fees. The syndicate couldn't keep up. They were fighting with billboards. He was fighting with infrastructure. One newspaper headline read, "The Abba boy who outsmarted the billionaires." Jeed finally found Kalis in a small warehouse behind the Mile 2 bridge. No guards, no luxury, just crates, hustle, purpose. Kalis looked up from a delivery manifest as Jeed entered. Look who found his spine. Jeed bowed his head. I betrayed you. Yes, Kalis said calmly, you did. I didn't know they'd go after Mama. Kalis's jaw tightened. You didn't ask. Silence. Then Kalis slid something across the table, a flash drive. Proof you didn't sign those fake NAFDAC papers. Take it. Clear your name. Jeed looked up, confused. But why? Kalis stood. Because we were brothers, and in war I bury my enemies, not my past. Late one night as rain pounded Lagos, Kalis got a message. An anonymous voice note. We're done playing games. Sunday, Elagushi Beach. Alone. No phone, no guards. Or your mother dies. Kalis sat in silence, watching the dark sky. Then he whispered to himself, if they want war, I'll show them the storm. Sunday, 3 a.m. The beach was empty, except for 4 black jeeps, and Kalis, alone. The cabal stood under a canopy, dressed like kings, dripping in designer, drowning in ego. You win, boy, the cigar man mocked. This ends tonight. No, Kalis said, stepping closer. It begins. He whistled once. From the shadows, dozens of people stepped forward. Salons owners, market women, street boys, bloggers, even policemen. Kalis raised his voice. You control money, I control the people. And when people stop fearing money, your power dies. The wind howled. Somewhere in the darkness, someone began to live stream. The cabal had brought threats. Kalis brought witnesses. By morning, hashtags were trending. Kalis the General. Hair for the people. Strand Revolution. 2 of the syndicate's top members were arrested by EFCC. Another fled to London under a fake name. Kalis's mother was found safe, hidden in a safe house he'd arranged a week earlier. And as the sun rose over Lagos, the street billboards changed. You've worn their crowns long enough. Now wear your power. Kalis Hair Alliance. Weeks after the Elagushi Beach standoff, Kalis was no longer just a businessman. He was a symbol. Radio stations buzzed with his name. University students printed his face on T-shirts that read, "From market to mandate." Small business owners called him the new face of true freedom. Even political groups began whispering, this boy, if he enters politics, he goes scatter table. At first, Kalis brushed it off, but the calls grew louder. One night at a private meeting in a dimly lit lounge in Ikoyi, 3 powerful figures approached him, a business tycoon, a youth movement leader, and a former governor. Lagos needs cleansing, the tycoon said. West Africa needs hope, the youth leader added. Kalis just stared at his glass of whiskey, silent. Then the governor leaned in and whispered, you started a revolution. Now finish it. While politics stirred at home, Kalis expanded outward. He moved fast. Accra partnered with beauty schools to embed his products into their curriculum. Nairobi launched salons owned entirely by local women. Johannesburg opened a massive warehouse at a fraction of competitors' costs. Cotonou built smuggling-proof routes that secured his hair supply lines better than oil companies. Kalis wasn't just selling hair, he was creating economies. The African Union even invited him to speak at a business summit titled New Age Commerce, Reclaiming Africa's Wealth from Foreign Hands. When he walked on stage wearing a simple Ankara shirt instead of a suit, the crowd roared for 5 minutes straight. In the crowd, somewhere unseen, sat a face from his past, watching, waiting. Jeed had cleared his name with the flash drive Kalis gave him, but he hadn't cleared his heart. He wore a bitter crown. He built a small company in Cotonou, but he remained in Kalis's long, unbreakable shadow. Nobody praised him. Nobody called him a general. At a low point, drowning in debt and anger, Jeed made a choice. He walked into the syndicate's remnant factions, the ones hiding in Europe, wounded but alive, and whispered, I can bring him down, from inside. They smiled. Jeed returned to Lagos, pretending repentance. He offered to help Kalis set up a logistics hub in Abuja. Kalis hesitated. But the old memories, the old dreams, the taste of brotherhood softened him. He welcomed Jeed back, put him in charge of one of the new Haircoin servers, gave him access, trusted him. For a while, things were good. They laughed again, drank cheap beer at roadside joints, talked about their days hustling slippers in muddy Aba markets. But behind Jeed's smiles was a silent countdown, a plan already in motion. It started subtly. Some Haircoin wallets froze. A shipment bound for Nairobi vanished without trace. Government auditors suddenly swarmed Kalis's warehouses. Rumors began swirling online. Kalis is laundering money. Kalis is working with foreign cartels. Kalis is fake, just another Lagos thief in Ankara cloth. Kalis smelled betrayal, and it stank of home. Kalis called Jeed to a quiet spot on Freedom Bridge. their old meeting ground from when they used to dream of saving the streets. Jeed came, wearing guilt like cologne. They stared at each other under the humming yellow lights. "You could have told me," Kalis said, voice low. "You had everything," Jeed hissed, "and I had your shadow." Kalis nodded slowly. "So you sold your soul again?" "I bought my freedom," Jeed snapped. Kalis stepped closer. "You bought chains, they just shiny this time." Jeed's jaw clenched. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance. One way or another, the night was about to end bloody. Jeed's hand twitched by his side. Kalis saw it, a glint of steel in the streetlight. Gun, not hesitation, not regret. A clean, practiced move. Jeed wasn't here to argue. He was here to end it. Without thinking, Kalis pivoted sideways as the first shot barked through the humid Lagos night. The bullet grazed his shoulder. Blood bloomed against his white shirt. Kalis dropped low, swept Jeed's legs out, and pinned him hard against the rusting guardrail of the bridge. They struggled, brother against brother, grunts and curses swallowed by the roaring lagoon below. Finally, Kalis wrenched the gun away. He pointed it at Jeed's chest, breathless, broken. "Do it," Jeed hissed. "Be the king they think you are." Kalis stared at him, then threw the gun into the water. "You already dead, Jeed," he said, voice cold. "You just don't know it yet." Kalis didn't call the police. He didn't call the press. He called Odogwu, an old militant from the creeks of Wari who now handled cleanups for those too rich to get their hands dirty. At dawn, Kalis's teams moved. They seized the corrupted Haircoin server. They froze every syndicate-linked account Jeed touched. They leaked footage of Jeed meeting with the old cabal leaders in a London hotel. Within 48 hours, Jeed's reputation was ashes. He fled Lagos on a forged passport, disappearing into the muddy corridors of Cotonou like a ghost with a price on his head. But power struggles spill blood where it's least expected. Mama Obiora, Kalis's mother, collapsed at her prayer meeting 3 nights later. No warning, no goodbye. The official cause, heart failure. But Kalis knew. The months of threats, the kidnapping, the stress of watching her son become a target. They didn't need bullets to kill her. They used fear. At her funeral in Aba, thousands showed up. Traders, students, hustlers, widows, all dressed in white, all carrying strands of hair tied into tiny bracelets. They didn't chant slogans, they sang, softly, a song about a boy who rose from the mud to fight the kings of the earth. And Kalis? He knelt by her grave, hand trembling, and made a vow. "I didn't start this for power. I started it for people. I finish it for you, Mama." Meanwhile, the old syndicate didn't die quietly. They launched counterattacks through proxies. Fires at Kalis's distribution hubs. Paid riots in Alaba Market, smashing his brands. Cyber attacks freezing millions of Haircoin credits. But Kalis had learned. For every riot they started, he fed 3 hungry communities. For every sabotage, he rebuilt 2 stores. He didn't just fight with fists, he fought with hope, and hope is harder to kill than any man. 6 months later, in a historic election, Kalis, pushed forward by a new grassroots political party, stood on the stage at Tafawa Balewa Square. Not as a candidate, not as a king, as the kingmaker. The man he'd endorsed, a humble but fierce reformer, was sworn into office. Kalis stood behind him, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the massive crowd. No suit, no bulletproof vest, just the people, chanting, alive, free. In Addis Ababa, inside a golden-walled room of the African Union headquarters, presidents and billionaires whispered about a new threat. Not a warlord, not a terrorist, not even a dictator. Kalis, a young Nigerian hair merchant turned kingmaker, was now influencing elections in Ghana, funding clinics in Kenya, and rewriting economic policies in Senegal with micro-trade programs powered by Haircoin. "What does he want?" asked a diplomat from Egypt. "He doesn't want to rule," replied a South African mogul, "which makes him even more dangerous." The table grew silent. Then one of them stood. He was pale, European, and wore a black diamond lapel pin. "I represent the consortium," he said. "We believe it's time." He was trimmed. The consortium had no website, no office, no paper trail, but they owned ports, banks, whole currencies. They'd watched Africa rise and always made sure to own the elevator. Kalis threatened that, so they acted. They bought up media houses to twist his image. They bribed old African leaders with offshore accounts and gold. And then they launched Project Weave, a joint campaign to flood Africa with ultra-cheap toxic hair products branded to look like Kalis's. In weeks, hospitals filled with women suffering scalp burns and rashes. Public confidence plummeted, and behind closed doors, governments began to whisper, maybe Kalis's empire is too big to trust. Kalis had no idea the real threat wasn't coming from Europe or Addis. It was coming from inside his own empire. Naomi Gaji, his brilliant chief strategy officer, the one who'd helped build the Haircoin blockchain, the one who sat by his mother's bedside in her final days, had been quietly working with the consortium for months. They promised her control of all East Africa, with Kalis exiled, outmaneuvered, or worse. And Naomi, she believed she could do better. Empires built on one man, she whispered to herself as she signed the betrayal contract, fall with that man. It happened in Kampala. Kalis was scheduled to open a women's cooperative funded entirely by Haircoin. Hundreds gathered, joyful, grateful. Then, boom. A car bomb tore through the entrance. Smoke, screams, blood. Kalis, thrown to the floor, crawled through broken glass with a shattered eardrum and a bleeding arm. 3 of his team died. Naomi wasn't in the convoy. She said her flight was delayed. Kalis lay in a dark clinic that night, stitched together by candlelight, staring at the tin ceiling. And for the first time in a long time, he whispered to himself, "This is bigger than hair." Kalis disappeared for 4 weeks. No social media, no interviews, no activity on the Haircoin blockchain. Then he returned. Not in a suit, in battle robes, a plain black kaftan, boots, and a scar running down his forearm. He appeared on a live Pan-African broadcast, standing beside survivors from the Kampala blast, women with bald heads and bandaged scalps. His voice was steady, low. "They tried to burn our crowns," he said, "so now we shave their thrones." Then the screen glitched, replaced by the logo of his new movement, CROWN, Coalition for the Rise of West and North Africa, a movement not just for business, but for independence, from foreign hands, from cabals, from betrayal. Naomi, watching from a private jet, dropped her wine. He knew, and he was coming. Naomi touched down in Casablanca. Her jet taxied to a private hangar where 3 consortium heads waited. Old men, suits like shadows, expressions carved from granite. "You said he wouldn't survive Kampala," one hissed. Naomi kept her chin high. "I didn't expect a martyr. I expected a message." "He is the message now," another spat. "You failed." She didn't flinch. "Then let me fix it." They slid a file toward her, Kalis's locations, allies, weak links. She didn't realize the camera in the hangar ceiling was live, and it was streaming, straight to Kalis. Back in Nigeria, Kalis stood in front of a dusty brick building in Aba, the place he'd once sold slippers beside his mother. With him were leaders from 14 African countries, journalists, activists, soldiers, ex-presidents in exile. He wasn't there to sell hair. He was there to hold the first CROWN Congress, a gathering not backed by the AU, not sanctioned by the West, and not controlled by any syndicate. He didn't make speeches. He listened. For once, Africa spoke for itself, and the world watched. Kalis launched Operation Black Comb at midnight. Encrypted files hit the internet. Secret accounts showing the consortium-funded illegal toxic product dumps in 8 countries. Footage of Naomi accepting bribes. Wiretaps of cabal members plotting assassinations. Interpol had no choice. In one sweep, 6 billionaires were arrested in Monaco, Geneva, and London. Naomi's private villa in Cape Town was raided. She tried to run, but the people were faster. Haircoin vendors, yes, hair vendors, blocked her convoy. She exited the car barefoot, arrested not by guns, but by citizens who once watched her build something beautiful and destroy it from within. The trial was held in a neutral African court, broadcast in 10 languages. Kalis took the stand, not as a victim, not as a CEO, but as a witness to betrayal and greed. Naomi never spoke during the proceedings. When found guilty, she simply nodded once. "They'll replace me," she said to Kalis in passing. "No," he replied, calm, "we'll replace them." She blinked, realized. He hadn't built a company, he had built a continent-wide immune system. 1 year later, Kalis sat at a school in northern Nigeria, surrounded by young girls learning business through the Haircoin cooperative. One asked him, "Uncle Kalis, do you miss fighting?" He smiled slowly and said, "I only fought because I had to." She nodded, then asked, "Are you going to run for president now?" He laughed, long, deep, free. "No," he said, "presidents come and go. But movements stay. Power isn't taken, it's built, strand by strand." Kalis Obiora.